Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
From author Donnie Boivin comes the book, How to Be a Success Champion, available on Amazon. After years of living other people's dreams, author Donnie Boivin decided to jump out on his own and start a business, thinking it would be easy. Instead, he had a rude awakening and quickly understood that he had spent 20 years being an employee and had no idea how to be a business owner. His business was tanking, and he was on the brink of losing everything when he decided to fight for business freedom. In this must-read and life-changing book, author Donnie Boivin shares with readers his story intermingled with lessons learned from his mistakes and his failures. In How to Be a Success Champion, you will find advice the author received from mentors and how he went from zero to a six-figure business. The author walks you through the steps of how to get out of your own way, how to play the game of business and win, find your strengths, how to network effectively, how to build a personal brand, how to create champions for your business, how to get great at sales, how to take complete ownership of you and your business. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Boivin, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy right now. It makes a great book for corporate events too. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Boivin, available on Amazon.
Hello. Welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I am your host, Nate Payo. Joined today by Cody Byrns. Cody Byrns is an internationally recognized speaker, a #1 best-selling author, and founder of the Cody Byrns Foundation for Burn Survivors. In May 2013, Cody's life was changed drastically after he was rear-ended by a box truck while stopped at a red light on the highway. He was considered dead until first responders saw his hand moved. He received many injuries that day, including severe burns to almost 40% of his body. After years of countless surgeries and rehabilitation, Cody has chosen not to allow his scars to keep him bound in bitterness and defeat. Instead, he uses his story to uplift others. His vision is to help people live free from the bounds of scars, physical and emotional, equipping others with the proper steps to walk out of their past hurt and defeat and run toward their full potential. As a thought leader, he speaks worldwide to provide relevant, applicable, and thought-provoking messages. Be prepared to be entertained, inspired, motivated, and recharged, both in your work and in your life. Welcome to the show, Cody.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
No problem. I'm ready for entertainment and inspiration.
Goody.
So I guess, there's an ironicness of your last name Byrns and being a burn survivor. You probably have been asked that a million times, but I've taken it this is, a big focus point of your life, a big pivotal moment that starts off with the story of what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is very comical. People in the burn unit had a good time with that. And so, yeah, I have to find humor in it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like one of those things where it's almost like it's so like upfront, like it's an elephant in the room. Like, hey, should we say anything? Like, just make the joke, man. And then laughter starts, and maybe that's like the first step towards, hey, how do I recover from something that's so devastating and moving forward? But it's interesting that you're like you said, in your bio, that you've chosen not to let this hold you back in bitterness and defeat. And I think that's like a reoccurring theme. I had a guest on my show that became paralyzed from the neck down through he was shot at a party, and he had the most inspiring message, the most enthusiasm, the happiest stuff. And I think a lot of people that haven't had anything really bad happen to them go, man, if something like that happened to me, like I'd be ruined. I could never recover from it. But the people that have been through it, I think have chosen to not let it hold them back, to not let them defeat them. And they've, I don't know, maybe done more than they thought possible prior? Like would you have achieved the same level of success or the same motivation, the same message had you not been through such a traumatic event?
Yeah, I think it's, and I love the quote. It's one of my mentors who gave me this, the key to success is playing the hand you were dealt like it was the hand that you wanted. And I think that applies with a lot of things in life. We all have a choice to make. We cannot control everything that happens to us in life. We can control a lot, but there are some things that are just uncontrollable. And in this case, with what happened to me, I certainly couldn't control it. I don't even remember. I don't remember it other than waking up in the hospital 3 weeks later. And so, but I think it all boils down to what we decide to do with it and making the most of our life. And it really puts things into perspective. And you start deciding on what is most important. And it truly is amazing. And I tell you, 7 years, it was 7 years, May 31st of this year. And I would not change a thing because I learned so much about life. And it's really had the opportunity to bless a lot of people, my story, my message. And so therefore I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. Like I thought about, and I haven't had anything quite as traumatic as your experience, but I've looked back on my life and all the things I said, hey, this was a really shitty point in my life, or this was a real struggle, like mentally, this one was a devastatingly challenging time emotionally, like bad breakups, getting in trouble at school or whatever it was. And you go, would you trade that experience and eliminate it from your life? And I've thought like, well, you can't, because if I didn't have this happen, I don't go to this one place. Because I don't go to that one place, I'm not introduced to this other person who takes me down this path. And you follow this path down, you go, I don't have my kids. Like if I don't go through this path, I don't have this thing that's super important in my life. So now I start looking back at like, hey, when bad things happen, you've always overcome. You always have like a something that makes you a better, stronger person. Something that's so much more powerful comes out of it than what you went through. So when you're going through that moment, I've been like, hey, just buckle down. It sucks. There's no doubt about it. It's not fun to go through, but enjoy the pain of it a little bit. Enjoy the ride, because you know that you're going to rise out of it a little bit better than you were before, even though at the moment it feels like a weird thing to say and to have that attitude. But that's been my experience of overcoming adversity. So that leads me to a question for you. And I think I'm going to get I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it. But what are your thoughts on luck? Are people lucky?
Well, I think in some cases we can, depends on how we define luck and where we really how we want to frame that. I guess in some cases, sure. Okay. But I think for the most part, it all boils down with what we're deciding to do with what we have. Just like with what I'm explaining with what happened to me, some people say, oh, you're lucky that, you didn't die in that. Which I consider myself, very lucky in that case. But at the same time, I have scars and everything. So there's people that would say, well, you're not so lucky because you have scars. But I look at them as, you know what, they're a blessing in disguise. So I guess I'm trying to, I don't know. I'm trying to be careful in how I answer that, because I can go many different ways.
Yeah, well, that's where we're here to get your take on it. But I'm curious about, what were you doing with your life prior to your injury? And where was that point where you, after you were going through rehabilitation recovery, where you said, hey, am I going to return back to that life, that path I was on, or am I going to move in a different direction?
Yeah, well, I remember that I was in the burn unit for 2.5 months in total. I had many surgeries, and, I was 23 when all that went down. And, extremely healthy. You wake up you're healthy one moment, you wake up the next and your body is completely deformed and you've just got all these issues going on. And so it was very traumatizing. But I remember, the biggest step was I had to see the scars of what the flames had did to my body. And, I have scars on my legs, my lower back, my arms, and some of those I couldn't see unless, they had unbandaged me. I mean, I was wrapped like a mummy. But I remember them bringing in a full-size body mirror, and I wanted to see the scars. I wanted to see what really happened. And upon seeing that, it was very traumatizing. I mean, it was probably the hardest moment for me, mentally, emotionally, because seeing that, I looked like some kind of monster out of a horror movie in my mind. But it was a big step in moving on. I had to come to grips and realize that there's no going back. I had to embrace it. And at the same time of being in the burn unit, my family had started up a Facebook page, and I could already see how people were being motivated and inspired by my determination. It was one of those things where one moment I'm going to get through this. I'm inspiring people by showing that, but at the same time, I'm human, so I certainly had my moments. So, I was a speaker. I was a children's pastor as well as an entertainer and a comedian before all of this. So naturally, I already had a following. I was already out in the public doing things, already seen in the public eye. And so I had that lane I was headed towards. And so obviously this was a big road bump. I didn't see this one coming. But I think because of my faith in God and obviously already being in that lane, it really took off for me to continue doing that. And, working in ministry, working with children and different people, when rubber hits the road, when life, takes when life takes a hit, everything you have taught beforehand to these individuals, they're now going to see if you really believe what you teach. Because people can talk something all day long. And so that reminded me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm living more than just myself. I'm living to inspire and encourage all those individuals that I once had the opportunity to stand in front of. And so naturally out of that, and still to this day, I live my life to serve others. It's not about me.
I think that's an important thing to do. I try to keep the show towards like networking and building personal relationships. And a lot of that comes down to how you serve others is really where the power of making friends, making connections works out. Is if you're in there for yourself, you're self-serving, those relationships aren't connected at a deep level. But when you're really being a servant to others, trying to make their lives better, trying to be an inspiration, living by example, I think those connections become deeper, stronger, and you're able to make the most of it a little bit better. So, I think it's amazing that you are working with kids. I know when I had my son, that like really changed my life big time. Like the way I viewed life and the way I thought of another human changed dramatically. And you just realize like how important it is to have a message that resonates and inspires kids to make better choices in life or learn how to go about being a better person. But to actually now you have a lot more right on your conscience about like, hey, I do need to speak their language. I need to live by example and not just be like a cop out. And I think what you described is a great example of like, hey, I got to take this very, very seriously, and not give up because the times are tough. And when I told them like, hey, you don't give up when times are tough. So it's an amazing example for sure. Is that who you most go on? So I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, man. Go for it. Ask.
I was just going to ask, is children who you work with the most?
Well, before all this happened, yes, I did work with adults and teenagers somewhat, but I tell you, since all this has happened, it's really expanded my audience. And so I speak a lot to adults. I would say the vast majority of who I speak to today is adults, whether they be at corporate events. I'm just now starting to go into the college market. And, but I certainly do children's events too when presented. But, due to the severity of my injuries, there's obviously I can't go as deep as I would if I was with teenagers or adults. Because I can really get, deep as far as I talk a lot about the scars and breaking free of what happened in our past. And it really hits home with a lot of people. But in the corporate world, obviously, I have different messages that I present that people are loving. So, yeah. It's a variety.
Yeah, I'm sure it is for sure. So, where did you start? I'd like to get your take on how relationships, networking has grown your business? Like, can you give me some examples of getting started, being a speaker, sharing your story, and how you rely on other people to help get your word out, get your message out, and connect you to other people?
Oh my goodness, it's huge. It is so important. And finding a good support system, I think we're all in charge of putting a good support system in place, mentors, having a good environment where you can grow in. And so, it started back even before the injury. I doing the entertainment and stuff. I was traveling and doing different events. I had an agent that was just starting to represent me at other churches or faith-based events at the time, doing the comedy and juggling. So connection played a big part in that. But even since all this, I mean, one of my mentors, he passed last year, Sean Stevenson, and I got connected with him, and really, I mean, he became one of my best friends. And he had a community that has allowed him to grow and develop to who he was. And so out of that, I made a lot of connections, and I have seen tremendous growth just by that. And being in there, by being in that group, it's almost impossible not to grow because they're all pushing you to go to the next level. And I love it because in their eyes, you don't make excuses. So often we can make excuses. They just cut through it and say, no, Cody, like for instance, I wrote a book, and they're like, okay, when are you going to write it? When are you going to have it done by? Because if I don't have a date and if I don't make it public, then obviously I'm going to procrastinate and put it off. But no, they held me to the standard. All right, you're getting it done.
Yeah.
So.
I love that idea of having like a really good support group that lifts you up. Like, I think of like all the groups I've been a part of where it really seemed like you were like having the time of your life and you were being very productive, and you were just like, I don't know, a lot of people call it flow, but you're just like, it just feels like things are just clicking. And it's always like when, like for me, it's like, it doesn't even feel like work. It's so much fun. It just doesn't feel at all what work should feel like. And you're accomplishing a bunch of stuff. The ideas you come up with, because you're bouncing ideas off each other, are so much bigger than what you come up on your own. But you're right. Like you're like encouraging each other to do bigger things. So instead of like being, hey, I think I'm going to write a book and maybe next week I'll start it. Maybe not. Like I'm going to write a book. Like, yeah, you are. And you're going to get it done by this time. Like that's an amazing thing to do, is look for people that support you, lift you up. And you talked about mentors, having mentors. I also, somebody introduced me to this idea of an advocate, and I found that person's super important too in your life. And this is a little different than a mentor. If you don't know what it is, it's not somebody that directly like guides you in your path and like helps you like learn things, but they're this person that you kind of sort of work with, kind of comes in your life, but they advocate for you. They're the ones that tell you like, hey, they tell your boss like, hey, this guy's just did an amazing time on his work, like check it out. Like, so having mentors, having advocates, having a good team of support really can lift you up and take you bigger places. So that's an important thing to have. Like, how did you start, how would you recommend somebody maybe goes out, finds a mentor, finds a team of support like that?
Yeah, I would say find those individuals that are already achieving what you're wanting to achieve. In my case as a speaker, I wanted to grow. I wanted to continue to expand my audience and go outside just speaking at churches. And so I searched out. I found guys that are speaking in the corporate world and had already done a lot of press and PR work as well. And so I knew, okay, I wanted to go to a bigger scale. So I found those people. And so I would encourage anybody that, no matter what your goal is, find those people, reach out to them. What's it going to hurt? Some people may say, you know what? No. But then I tell you, I paid for some classes. There's mastermind groups out there, and, you pay. And sometimes these ticket prices may seem a little high, but in the long run, they're only going to serve you. And you're going to find that your business is going to grow, your profits are going to grow. And so it certainly ain't going to do any wrong. And out of that, you become friends. And you develop so many beneficial connections.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm like usually when I ask people the question about luck, a lot of times that thing about like right place, right time comes up. And I always tell people people aren't in the right place at the right time. I mean, that happens, but the people that create their own luck just know where the right places are, and they go there more often until the right time approaches. So like you said, how do I get plugged in with these people that are doing great things? Well, you find out where they're at, and then you go to those spots and you start hanging around. If you hang around long enough, you're going to have a conversation with one, and all of a sudden, like, you kind of go from the outsider to an acquaintance to like a friend, and then they introduce you to somebody else, and you're like plugged into this group, and now you're one of the leaders in the industry too that you're kind of hanging out with. So I think that's an amazing topic. Awesome. So now that like coronavirus has been going on, you're probably not out on the road speaking as much. What have you been doing to look at new ways of getting your message out and keeping your business moving in the right direction?
Yeah. Well, I think I think a lot of speakers are in the same, ball game. And, my big thing is I attended some webinars. I communicate with other speakers, seeing what they're doing. And, surprisingly enough, I mean, a lot of people are still soaring in their business because they're turning everything to a virtual. So, my big thing now is I'm wanting to do my first live event. So I'm looking at August, possibly. I've got my people that are holding me accountable. They're already saying, Cody, all right, set a date. So I'm doing my own live event. I'm also doing other people's events and working on my schedule for 2021, because I do know that eventually things are going to get back to normal. So in the meantime, I've got my assistant. We're reaching out to all these corporate groups. We're still making plans to make things happen. And I'm also doing a lot of podcasts. So that makes it fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And that's one thing I think I noticed during this time being work from home is like some people let life happen to them and they don't make like, hey, I'm just going to wait this out. And we don't know when it's going to eventually, it can't last forever. But you can make progress on the stuff you want to work on, and you can find new ways of doing it. And then there's like things you like learn, you go, why wouldn't I just keep doing some of this stuff even after things go back to normal? Because like you could jump on a podcast, you could jump on a virtual meeting, and you can get connected with somebody across the country, across the world, just super, super easy. And before you'd be like, oh, I never would have thought to like get on the phone. I mean, people did FaceTime, but like how many times did you go like, oh, somebody's calling me FaceTime? Like, I'm not answering, like call me regularly. Like that's happened a bunch, but now we're like so used to it. You can go, especially if you're very niche in what your interests are, you can get connected to somebody that's like that, have conversations, whatever you want. So that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what is your thoughts on being all in on an idea or an outcome?
I think it's extremely beneficial. And I think, if you're passionate about something and the individuals you're serving, like in my case, I'm all in 100%. And to me, my job is a lot of fun. To me, it doesn't seem like a job because I thoroughly enjoy it. But I am all in. I mean, this is my bread and butter, but it's also what I feel my purpose is in life. And so I dedicate a lot of money into seeing this thing happen. And I know that I'm going to get there. Nothing's going to stop me. And so, there really is no plan B. I am 100% doing what I'm doing, and I love it.
Yeah, there's like a internet video going around with Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about like, hey, if you don't have a plan B, because if you have a plan B, you'll fall back on it and you'll give up when the time it gets a little tough. And I think you talked about like, hey, this is your calling and you want to be out there doing it. And I've had some thoughts on this recently, and it's like, if you have a calling and you're nervous to go out there and share it to the world, like you share your message or share your gift, because maybe your gift isn't talking and speaking, maybe it's creating something, or maybe it's baking the best apple pies in the world. But if you don't go out there and share your gift to the world, you're like depriving other people of receiving that gift. And I think with your message, there's a lot of people out there that have had or traumatizing events that they don't know how they're going to come back from. And if you just had decided to not share your message, there's probably somebody that's heard your message and said, shit, if you can do it, I can do it. Like, and I'll go out there and do it. And you say, what if I hadn't said that message? What if that person didn't hear it and they chose a different path in life and I didn't make that difference I did. So I think there is definitely some truth in like, answering your calling and sharing your gift with the world. And I love your answer on what it means to be all in. Excuse me, losing my voice a little bit. So going a little bit back to your August event, let's talk about that. Who is this person that this event is for? If I'm sitting at home, you're talking about who I am. Who's that person that's going to resonate with that message and want to come and see you?
Yeah, and that is something I am still trying to decide exactly how I'm going to target this. My big thing, the people that I speak to no matter what their faith is or their background. If they believe in God, they don't believe in God. I speak to no matter what their race or belief systems are or where they're from. So I speak to everybody. And so that makes it challenging as far as from a marketing standpoint because, all right, I have to narrow this down. So I'm still trying to figure out what that event will look like. I'm creating outlines and so forth, but I think it's just really everyday human beings that just need guidance and help to get back up on their feet and pivot in such a time as this, and I think there's a lot of people still hurting. Obviously, in today's world, that we have a lot of trauma and things that are taking place. And so I feel that my message and the resources that I have available will be extremely beneficial, and the connections, because I'll be bringing in other speakers to be part of this event too. So it's still in creating. So yeah. I'm going back and forth. I'm still pondering on that.
Well, the good thing is you have a support group that one isn't going to let you not do it, and you can't do it unless you have figured that out. So we know it's going to happen. So I think that you when you're talking about what it means to be all in, I was like, well, you got these guys that are going to not let you not be all in. So, and I'm sure you're holding them just as accountable as they're holding you. So, looking forward to hearing what that event is going to actually turn out to be and when it's going to be. Do you have a location figured out yet?
It would just be, online, and we'll probably use the Zoom platform where people can just sign in wherever they are and view it. And I don't know if probably be a half a day event. I may do it for a weekend. So I'm still kind of just creating all that. So we shall see.
Yeah, I love that creation process of like figuring it out and watching. Like a lot of times you say like, oh, this person put on this like huge event. Like, I guess they know what they're doing, they're all professionals about, but like everybody starts at day one somewhere, like everybody has their, like Tony Robbins, all these people, they had their first events at some time, and to see like how you go about the creative process of doing it. And I think that's an inspiration too, because somebody else is going to want to do it sometime, and they might say like, Cody's hosting these really, big shows, tons of people. It's a lot of energy. And like, no, go back and look, man. He was doing some stuff. He didn't know what he was doing, but he figured it out. He hosted his first one, and it took off from there. And if, like you said, if they're doing it, it could be repeated. And I think there's inspiration when somebody shows you something's possible, it's believable. Like to me, if you think like, hey, I can't do something, it's because there's something in my mind that's limiting like the ability. Like I can't figure out how I can get from point A to point B or to C. But when you break it down into something that's believable, that's possible, then you're like, oh, I could get there too. So awesome stuff. Let's talk about where people can find you.
Yes, I'm on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I'm still new to it, but TikTok. I guess that's a big thing nowadays. And but yeah, my website can lead them to all those things.
Yeah, TikTok is the weirdest thing. Like I'll post stuff, like I'll do something like think about it and I'll plan something, I'll do it a bit like flop. And then it's like you're like literally like I walked downstairs once, filmed myself walking down. It was like the most views I ever got on any TikTok. I was like, this took it was like a 2-second thing. I saw somebody did it. I was like, I could do that one. I did it. And then I was like, geez, this thing is just crazy how it just makes
it is. Sense. It is the most craziest thing because it's like something, and you could put so much time and effort into creating something. You think, oh, this is going to get a lot of views. But no, sometimes it's just the simplest things that people enjoy.
Yeah.
So I'm learning.
That to me though, it's been an amazing platform. Like I went on it because Gary Vee's like, get on TikTok, get on LinkedIn, and I'd already been on LinkedIn, so I was like, oh, I'll just start being more proactive with it, and that's been cool. But didn't know anything about TikTok, so I could get in there, and it's very new, and I haven't really been in any of the social medias at the very very beginning, and so like I would see people I know kind of come in, and they would just go from like 0 followers to like hundreds of thousands of followers like in a few weeks, and you're just like, holy moly, like that really takes off, and they get the, people like when I started podcasting, I was like, how do I do it? Like I don't know anything about it, and how can I find some podcasters? And I found one on TikTok. I like hashtag the podcasters, and I was just like following some podcasters, and then like I went over to her website, like how does she have it set up, like how is it, oh, she got a Facebook group, go to the Facebook group, and all of a sudden like I'm in her Facebook group, we chat regularly, I've met tons of her people within her network that have helped me along my path, and it's like that was TikTok. Like TikTok brought me there. So you can't knock it. It does. When people say, hey, it's just childish, it's like I have personally found people that I do business with because of TikTok. So you can't knock it.
That's right. We have, and that's the, and what's interesting is I'm young, and I often feel much older than what I am. But I see the TikTok, and I'm thinking, okay, this is young, this is new, this is fresh. But you you have to move with the times, the social media, what is happening, and right now that's the big thing. So, we can't knock it because it can certainly have its benefits.
What's your favorite trend right now?
You mean on social media wise, or on TikTok? Oh my gosh, there are so many. I was just on it earlier today, and I was scrolling through, and I seen they're very popular. Like there's these videos of this. I don't know the name of the song to Save My Life. It's some guy that's making some kind of weird noise, but it's the ladies holding on to drinks, and they're spilling these drinks on their babies. And I'm thinking, this is, but the whole point of it is it matches with the song, but it's a child making these craziest faces, and it's hysterical. But at the same time, I'm thinking these poor kids. God bless them. I mean, they're getting baptized right there and they're making the hideous faces. And I'm just thinking these moms are enjoying this. I mean, they're just pouring water on their kids.
It's the craziest thing. Like I was telling a coworker the other day about TikTok, and they're like, "Well, what is it?" And I was like, "I don't know how to explain it. It's just like." You just flip through things and like the weirdest things happen. And I was like, here, let me show you this one. And there's this guy, he's this kid, and he's kind of a goofy, I don't know, teen, just maybe 20s. And he takes this like Christmas paper tube, and he's like blowing it like a horn, and he like turns to blow it to his brother, and his brother like snatches out of the hand and just hits him to it, but they're playing it to Gwen Stefani's song Bananas, so it's like and like every time it just keeps going like back and forth to him just getting whacked in the face with this Christmas tube wrap. I was like, this is the funniest thing I've literally ever seen in my life. And they're like, you've lost your mind. I'm like, yeah, don't go on TikTok if you don't have a lot of time, because you'll spend some time there giggling and laughing. So very cool. Well, anybody that wants to connect with you, I encourage you to get out there, connect with Cody. His all those places to find them, they'll be linked in the show notes. Find him on TikTok, see these trends he's up to. Maybe by then he'll be spilling a little water on some kids, maybe not.
Let's see. Oh my gosh,
we'll see. Anyways, cool. Glad got a chance to connect with you, have you on the show, and appreciate you coming by.
Oh man, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.